is Artem. This happened to me last winter, and to this day, I still can't explain what I experienced. I was renting an apartment in an old building on the outskirts of the city. It was one of those aging apartment blocks with long, dark hallways and creaky staircases. I barely knew any of my neighbors. One evening, around 11 o'clock, I was coming home from work. As I reached my floor, I noticed something strange. The apartment across from mine had its door slightly open. That was impossible. The apartment had been empty for years. I stopped and stared into the darkness beyond the doorway. Nothing, no sound, no movement. Then I heard a voice. Artem. I froze. It was my voice. Exactly my voice. I immediately rushed into my apartment and locked the door behind me. I convinced myself that I was tired and imagining things. That night, I woke up to the sound of footsteps in the stairwell. Step, step, step. Someone was slowly climbing the stairs. The footsteps stopped right outside my door. Silence. Then came 3 knocks. Knock, knock, knock. I looked through the peephole. Nobody was there. But just as I was about to step away, a face suddenly appeared. My face. It was staring directly at me, smiling. I jumped back in terror. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely breathe. A few seconds later, I looked again. The hallway was empty. The next morning, I decided to speak with the building's caretaker. The old man listened quietly. Then he asked, "You live in apartment 47? I nodded. His face turned pale. 20 years ago, another young man lived there. His name was Artem too. What happened to him? I asked. The old man looked away. They found him dead in the apartment across the hall. Officially, it was ruled a suicide, but the residents told a different story. They said that before he died, he kept seeing someone who looked exactly like him, first in mirrors, then in hallways. Then he started hearing his own voice, and after that, he disappeared." I laughed it off. It sounded like nothing more than an urban legend. But that evening, something happened that terrified me even more. When I returned home, I found a note taped to my door. Only 4 words were written on it. "Don't open the door." My hands started shaking. At the bottom of the note was a signature, Artem, written in my handwriting. That night I didn't sleep. At exactly 3 in the morning, I heard the footsteps again. Slow, heavy, getting closer. They stopped outside my apartment. Then I heard my own voice. "Artem, open the door. It's me." I remained perfectly still. The voice spoke again. "You're not the real one." "I am." Then came the pounding. At first it was quiet, then louder and louder. The door shook violently. I called the police, but before they arrived, everything went silent. When the officers finally got there, nobody was outside. However, they noticed that the abandoned apartment across the hall was open. They went inside. A minute later, one of the officers came running out, pale as a ghost. On the dusty floor lay an old photograph. There was a young man in the picture. He looked exactly like me. On the back was a date, 5 years before I was born. The next day, I moved out. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Tell me in the comments, what would you do if you heard your own voice outside your door at 3 a.m.? Turn on notifications so you don't miss the next terrifying story. Sleep well. And if you hear someone knocking tonight, make sure it's really who you think it is.